Monsters exist in reality. Some of these entities leave behind scars on the land, bodies never found. Others blend in, wearing human faces, living among us in different forms, across cultures, across continents. In this episode, I'll share stories of such creatures. Tales that are real to many, ignored by most. These won't be bedtime stories, and this isn't meant to comfort. I'm not here to help anyone fall asleep, but to wake people up. Got some incidents collected that shall do just fine. And if you're wondering what the point is, well, maybe it's this. Be righteous, be aware of evil, don't follow Satanism. It may parade itself as freedom, rebellion, or cool, but the truth is darker. That path doesn't just destroy your soul after death, it leaves your loved ones haunted in life. This trend of glorifying Antichrist ideologies, it's not bold, it's foolish. So listen closely. Take what you will, and remember, some doors, once opened, never close. If you appreciate this kind of content, consider subscribing to the channel. Now, here are the stories. Dogman at land between the lakes. Borrowing its roots from Michigan's 1887 Wexford County sightings, where lumberjacks reported a 7-foot-tall, blue-eyed, half-man, half-dog creature, the Kentucky Dogman inherits both mythic weight and regional terror. Legends claim this canine humanoid appears in 10-year cycles ending in 7 howling with voices that blend growl and human scream, its eyes like embers in the dark. Some say it's descended from native shapeshifters, the Odawa medicine men-turn curse who can no longer return to flesh, trapped between spirit and beast. Classified Field Operations Report. Operation Designation: FIR, Field Unit Reconnaissance. Incident Date Range: January 1st to 11th, 2023. Geographic Zone: south of Demumbers Bay, land between the Lakes National Recreation Area, Kentucky/Tennessee border. Entity Type: bipedal predatory cryptid, subject codename Dogman. Survivor Debrief: Agent 019, Clearance Alpha Gray. Back on January 1st, the incident began, at least officially, in a far more mundane way. 3 members of a National Park Ranger unit had been dispatched to investigate a civilian report near Nickel Branch Campground. An unusually aggressive animal, strange sounds in the night, footprints too large and oddly shaped to be a bear, and guttural growls that set dogs barking until their collars slipped loose. By January 3rd, communication had ceased. The GPS trackers embedded in their gear remained locked in place for a full 48 hours somewhere in a densely wooded section of forest. No movement registered, no radio pings, no SOS. Just silence. A civilian search team was quickly dispatched, their boots crunching through snow-soft earth, and though they found no bodies, they did find disturbing trophies. A severed finger still clutching a car key so tight the knuckle cracked, and 2 separate boot soles lying side by side with no feet inside. These grisly clues told a story of inability to escape, or unwillingness, that none could interpret. It was only then, when local law enforcement ran out of options and the Fisheries and Wildlife Service refused to escalate further, that Mr. E was activated. Mr. E, the director of an off-the-books rapid response unit, assembled the team, 10 men, evenly broken into 2 Humvees and a smaller utility terrain vehicle, UTV, for rougher ground. Each man carried a silver-tipped .308 high-power rifle and a compact sidearm. They brought full-spectrum thermal optics, UAV recon drones, Class 3 encrypted communications gear, and a battered portable satellite uplink under an overhead relay call sign that changed daily to avoid enemy intel. When Rodriguez, nicknamed Riggs, demolitions expert and local amateur stand-up comedian, heard of the assignment, he cracked, "If we're hunting a stray dog with attitude, we might as well joke before it rips our throats out." Hence, Operation FUR was born. On paper, the mission was straightforward: identify what had happened to the missing rangers, recover any bodies or human remains, and neutralize the threat if necessary. But as anyone who's ever drawn breath understands, on paper and in practice are opposing forces. They set up their first forward operating base 2 clicks north of the last known GPS ping. The area should have felt like wilderness, but instead it felt like surveillance, a suffocating quiet that pulsed with intent, as though every tree and rock was listening for passing fear or whispered commands. The cold felt like needles pressed into the lungs, though the ground carried only a hint of snow. Recently melted frost made the air damp but unyielding. Rodriguez crouched by the fire he lit, a controlled burn as always, while Benson placed ultraviolet-based perimeter sensors in the brush. Simmons, their uneasy tech specialist, connected his array of thermal monitors and began parsing screens in real time. Minutes in, Simmons' headset crackled. "Guys, you seeing this?" On his screen, heat blooms appeared and vanished within the canopy, rounded seams of warmth, 45 degrees hotter than ambient, hovering 5 meters up and exactly the same shape every single time, before vanishing without relocating. He quickly dismissed them as interference, perhaps a reflective pool, animal flocks, or thermal column anomalies. The rest chalked it up to nerves, skeletons in the mind left over from Black Ops training and desert nightmares. But they were all wrong. Some hours later, prior to full darkness, the mood around the fire was tense but not desperate. Corporal Matthews, the tallest and youngest of the squad, had managed to crack a few jokes about Simmons's twitchy monitor checks. "Hey Simmy, if we get ghost bears in the trees, let me fire the first shot. I've got it in slow pitch." Simmons rolled his eyes, barely amused. "Fuck you, Matt. And if we'd equipped thermal for your butt, you'd be glowing like bacon." A round of laughter expressed relief that they were still alive, that the immediate threat was unknown. Rodriguez leaned forward, poked the fire with a stick, and asked softly, "Matt, you ever heard the one about the night ranger who screamed, but only the trees answered?" There was silence, then Matthews said, "Go on, joke man." Rodriguez gestured to the forest, voice hushed but triumphant. "They say he got the alert, put his hand to the radio mic and died laughing. Because folks, there was no voice on the other end. Just him, holding a bone microphone where the trees chewed his hand off. The crackle of wood combined with the wind whistling low. It sounded, just for a moment, like a howl. They all froze. Even Benson, always the most composed with first aid kits and SOP checklists, recognized that sound. The hairs at his neck stood. Rogers caught the look, threw an arm around Benson's shoulders, laughed, and said, "Relax, man, it isn't February yet. Wolves don't howl until moonlight hits ice." "Far too soon," Simmons' voice cut through. "New heat signature." "Behind you," he said, monotone yet urgent. Rodriguez, ever first through a door, spun his rifle around and flicked in V on. There was nothing. Then there was everything. A figure, towering, still, human-shaped but grotesquely too tall, too thin, crouched 3 meters beyond the fire edge. It had no guns, no gear, no features, just the sense that something was watching beyond sight. No one moved. Now, survivor in custody, heat anomalies mapped across forest canopy, and a suppressed howl echoing in every agent's gut, the team stares down the barrel of Operation Fur's first truly unwritten chapter. Second night arrived. It began with movement outside our outer ring. Just beyond visibility, branches swaying where there was no wind, soil shifting where there were no prints. I caught sight of a silhouette for half a second. Tall, upright, limbs proportioned incorrectly for any North American predator. Knees bent the wrong way. It didn't move like prey. Rodriguez, ever the clown, called it coyotes on stilts. Nobody laughed. Simmons checked the drone playback. His voice cracked when he said, "Guys, the deer are gone. The bait carcasses we'd used for perimeter tracking? Gone, but not eaten, stacked, arranged in a clean, unnatural spiral of bodies. bones protruding outward like ritualized sculpture. We took photos. We didn't speak. At 4:19, Simmons disappeared. His kit remained untouched, headset blinking. The thermal lens still registered a heat signature standing over his tent for 13 seconds. No image, just residual warmth and dead silence. We found his arm at dawn. Still warm, no drag marks, just clean detachment at the shoulder. We split, Alpha moved north. I led Bravo down toward Duncan Bay, following the ridgeline to an old ranger path that had long since faded into moss. The trees were thinner, which should have helped. Instead, it felt like standing in a trap with the teeth half closed. At 14:32, we heard a vocalization. Not a growl, but something between a man choking and a wolf gargling. Then came impact. Martinez was lifted off the ground by something unseen and flung backward into a cedar. His vest cracked on impact. His skull followed. The blood steam rose before he even hit the snow. Then we saw it. Entity description. Height, 7 feet 6 inches estimated. Locomotion, bipedal. Fur, matte black, soaked appearance. Head, elongated canid structure, exaggerated mandibles, vertical split snout. Arms, disproportionately long, fully articulated fingers ending in claws approximately 6 to 8 inches. Eyes, reflective, blue-white. In movement, accelerated short bursts, noise minimal, coordination extremely advanced. No signs of fatigue or wounding upon gunfire impact. We opened fire. I lobbed 2 direct chest shots. Benson got one shoulder. It shrugged us off like mosquitoes. Rodriguez was the only one who didn't retreat. Drew a K-bar and drove it upward into the ribcage. Last confirmed visual of Rodriguez, still stabbing as the creature dragged him screaming into the pines. By 2100 hours, it was just Carson and myself. He was wounded. Deep gash on the shoulder, claw marks, multiple layers deep. He was bleeding too fast and didn't know it. As we holed up in a rusted RV trailer we found near Lake Barkley, he asked me, "Why the hell did it go after us? We're not even the A-team." I didn't answer. Truth was, I didn't know. Carson died before sunrise. I used a flare to draw attention near the service road. Made it to a ranger substation with what was left of the sat phone. Inside the log, a 13-minute video from Simmons' drone before his disappearance. The footage showed the Dogman dragging Rodriguez's body along a dry creek bed. Halfway through it stops, looks up, directly at the camera, bares its teeth. Then darkness. Within 24 hours, all physical evidence was seized. Bodies incinerated. No official report. No law enforcement follow-up. 3 pictures from the ranger team made it onto missing persons boards. That was it. Mr. E called me personally a week later. His tone was calm. Surgical. I asked, "Is it over?" Just, "Son, that thing left something in the woods." Wendigo, northern Minnesota. In Algonquian myths, the Wendigo is no mere beast but a cannibalistic spirit designed as a spiritual caution. Gluttony and greed literally kill the soul emaciated, ice cold. With skin clinging to bones and antlers or horns crowning its head, it emerges from starvation-frozen forests and thrives where human hunger turns to taboo. Victims are not just eaten, they are become Wendigo, cursed souls doomed to endless craving, never sated no matter how much flesh they consume. Case file. Entity #W17A. Supernatural predatory type. Classification. Wendigo. Date of incident. January 4th to 8th, 2022. Location. Superior National Forest, Minnesota, north of Vermilion Gorge. Approximate 30 miles from Canadian border. Authorized personnel. Operative number 204, lead, Macklin, field survivalist, Ellis, junior recruit, ROTC affiliated. Tabi, archivist, Ojibwe translation. Subject status, active. Local threat level, escalated, behavioral influence confirmed. The man recovered by DNR rangers near the edge of Superior National Forest weighed just 93 pounds. His hair was frozen in chunks, his limbs showing signs of advanced frostbite and muscular degeneration. But the most disturbing features were his eyes, wide, unfocused, veined like cracked marbles, and the way his fingertips had been ground down to exposed bone, likely from obsessive clawing. When the ranger offered him heated broth, he recoiled violently, screamed until he bled from the throat, and muttered rapidly in fractured Ojibwe dialect. We called in Tabi, retired ethnographer and linguist with a history of backwoods behavioral phenomena. He brought his usual weather-beaten notebook. After translating a few of the fragmented phrases the survivor repeated, most sounding like guttural fragments of prayer or curse, Tabi flipped to a page marked by a worn feather. He said, "It's not just starvation. It's invitation." We were dispatched on this case due to a developing pattern. Over the previous 3 weeks, there had been 3 missing persons cases in the surrounding region, all experienced trappers or foresters. One trapper's cabin had burned completely to the ground under conditions the fire marshal found inconsistent with typical structure fires. And then came a sat phone transmission from a retired forestry veteran named Hank Carver. Verbatim, his words were, "They're eating each other again, boys. You best bring silver and a damn fireproof tent." It's easy to laugh at local superstition until your boots are in the snow and the pines start breathing on their own. I've learned, over time, that it's not the embellished tales you worry about. It's the ones they only whisper after too much whiskey, the stories that stop abruptly when a branch cracks outside. Our team, myself, Macklin, a man who spent more time off-grid than online, and Ellis, a young recruit with government-issue optimism and the kind of blind trust in protocol that gets eaten first. We pushed north past the boundary markers, snowmobiles kicking slush into the treeline, birch and black spruce rising like brittle tombstones in every direction. The air had that heavy, wet stillness that usually comes before a blizzard or a bloodletting. The first site we hit had no survivors, just an old campsite littered with animal bones. Fox, hare, maybe more. The carcasses had been cleaned surgically, stripped of every shred of meat, marrow sucked from split bones. They were arranged deliberately, arcs pointing toward an abandoned stone chimney, the only thing left standing where a structure had clearly once burned. Just smoke-stained stones and the scent of scorched protein and hair. Ellis, ever the academic, called it a shrine. Macklin, ever the realist, said flatly, "Wendigo once rot." We set up camp that night near the gorge. Temperatures dipped into the negatives. Even the plastic tabs on our ration packs cracked like glass. The silence was unnatural, more than just absence of sound. It pressed in like the forest had drawn breath and refused to exhale. We ate MREs and avoided the subject everyone was thinking about. Ellis finally broke the silence, asking, "You think the Wendigo's real?" Macklin didn't look up. He just muttered, "You ever been so hungry you'd bite your own tongue just to feel something warm inside you?" Ellis didn't touch the rest of his meal. Day 2 brought tracks. Not animal. Not human. Spaced inconsistently, the gait too narrow and deep to belong to moose or deer. Bare feet. Long, slender. Toes ended in claw-like impressions. No signs of dragging. Snow disturbed only where it mattered, like the creature floated through reality and only occasionally touched down. That night, Ellis began to deteriorate. He said he heard his name outside the tent. Not whispered, spoken. Repeated like it was being learned. He wasn't hallucinating. We checked the recorder he'd stashed near the entry flap. It played back the name, Alice, not spoken, but tasted, as if formed in a mouth that wasn't used to speaking. Third sight, another ruined cabin. This one collapsed, carpeted in moss and frost, but the smell hit us immediately. Wet metal, pickled meat. Macklin found claw marks on the interior, deep, erratic, like something had either tried to escape or prevent others from leaving. Beneath a rusted stove, we located a human jawbone. Still had 3 molars. No skull. No body. Macklin smoked a cigarette and said, "Looks like they tried to swallow themselves." That night, Ellis snapped. I woke to him whispering about hunger and shadows that lived inside the fire. I told him to lie down. He looked straight through me and said, "It's already inside me." Then he ran. I chased him barefoot into sub-zero wind. Found him standing shirtless in a clearing, skin steaming in the cold, eyes locked on a birch tree. That tree was carved, faces etched deep into the bark. Not stylized, not abstract, realistic, human, and familiar. Faces from missing persons reports. Ellis was carving his own face into the wood using his fingernails. We sedated him, carried him back. Next day, he didn't speak, just moved his mouth, silently communicating with something we couldn't see. Tobby radioed into delay extraction, cited weather. But I suspect it wasn't weather. Macklin, visibly rattled, spent the day sharpening sticks and muttering about skewering the cold right back. Third night it came. Observed height, 7 to 8 feet. Build, emaciated but powerful. Skin was pale, waxy, stretched impossibly tight over jutting bone. Eyes, sunken marbles of dark resin. Antlers protruded, not cleanly like a deer's, but in fungal clumps, branching, rotting, alive. It walked slow, not stalking, just aware. It had already won. Macklin lit a flare and charged it with a hatchet. The creature responded by opening its mouth, far too wide, jaw dislocated like soft plastic, and let him run straight into it. Sounded like someone tearing wet leather. I grabbed Ellis. We ran. Didn't look back. Didn't stop until sunrise. We were found by Border Patrol. Ellis had no pulse. Stomach was completely empty. But his mouth? It was packed with fingernails. Tobby told the officials it was hypothermia. Said we'd been tracking a rogue bear and lost our bearings. I told him I'd seen it. Tobby didn't deny it. He just said, "They all do eventually." I asked if it was gone. He shook his head slowly. Mothman, Point Pleasant, West Virginia. First appearing on November 15, 1966, the Mothman was sighted by 2 young couples who described a large flying creature with glowing red eyes and a 10-foot wingspan near an abandoned TNT plant. What followed was a year of mass hysteria, over 100 sightings, strange lights in the sky, visits from the so-called Men in Black, and a pervasive sense that something was deeply wrong in Point Pleasant. Then came the collapse of the Silver Bridge on December 15, 1967, killing 46 people. Many believe the Mothman was either a harbinger of doom or a supernatural guardian whose warnings went ignored. Books, documentaries, and even a major motion picture, The Mothman Prophecies, enshrined the winged figure in popular culture. Locals still hold annual festivals, and the statue that now stands in the town square features piercing red eyes that seem to follow you home. Incident report, unclassified entity observation. Subject code, red-eyed ghost. Date, November 13, 2023. Location, Point Pleasant, West Virginia, TNT area ruins. Field operatives, Unit 3C. Personnel present, Operator number 211, myself. Taylor, ex-law enforcement. Dahl, contractor, civilian background, former witness. We arrived in Point Pleasant under orders relayed through Edgar's desk, prompted by an abnormal series of deaths spread across a tight window of time. 3 vehicular fatalities with no apparent mechanical failure, 2 confirmed suicides from the Silver Memorial Bridge, and 1 hiker located in the TNT area whose cause of death remains officially undetermined. Notable autopsy detail: ocular liquefaction. The local police dismissed these incidents as unrelated, tragic coincidences. As is typical, our presence was not coordinated with local authorities. Subject: folklore indicates a long history of encounters involving a winged humanoid, colloquially referred to as the Mothman, frequently appearing prior to infrastructural collapse or mass tragedy. Earliest documented cases trace back to 1966, beginning with eyewitness reports from gravediggers and young couples in the Point Pleasant area, followed by the infamous collapse of the Silver Bridge in December 1967. The location, known locally as the TNT area, is a derelict munitions storage zone from World War II, now riddled with overgrown vegetation, toxic groundwater, and disused concrete storage igloos. The atmosphere is consistent with elevated EM interference, sporadic magnetic anomalies, and a lingering sulfuric odor indicative of decaying industrial runoff or deeper biological contamination. Initial reconnaissance was uneventful, though the region emitted an oppressive stillness common in places where natural order has been interrupted. Dahl, who claimed to have seen the entity in 2007 during what he described as a high state of sensory awareness, guided us to a specific dome where his sighting allegedly occurred. He claimed the entity did not flee but retreated into darkness by sliding backward, suggesting either anti-gravitational capability or visual distortion. Camp was set up near Dome 17. Taylor, visibly irritated by the nature of the assignment, consumed roughly 375 milliliters of bourbon over a 4-hour span. Dahl initiated EVP protocols using standard field gear. No coherent results were achieved. My attention remained fixed on an earlier sighting of a deer carcass. No visible injuries, no predation, no blood, just collapsed as though the nervous system had shut down at once. At exactly 2:17 hours, the moonlight over our sector dimmed considerably, not due to cloud cover, but by an airborne obstruction of unusual shape and size. Audible phenomena began shortly thereafter, sustained flapping, reminiscent of heavy cloth torn by crosswinds, with no accompanying wind at ground level. Thermal imaging revealed fragmented heat signatures inconsistent with bird flight patterns, more akin to flame distortions viewed through thick glass. Then came the vocalization. The frequency was unstable, beginning within the range of animal distress calls but climbing to an electronic screech akin to a corrupted modem signal. Dahl dropped his equipment and entered a mild fugue state. Taylor became physically ill. I noted an olfactory presence accompanying the sound: ozone, scorched feathers, and something resembling chemically scorched air. Post-event analysis at first light revealed indentations across the upper structures of 3 separate domes. Metal showed clear concave deformation, as if a mass exceeding 400 pounds had landed briefly. Dahl began muttering references to a recurring dream of his deceased brother inside a flooded house, a memory he had not previously disclosed. Taylor played a voicemail from his phone, a call he claimed auto-initiated at 3:06. Recording contained ambient flapping and heavy, mechanical breathing, followed by a whispered utterance of his full name. We terminated our operation early. At 4:03, en route across the Silver Memorial Bridge, the truck's electrical system flickered. We lost full power for approximately 3.5 seconds. It was during this window that we saw the entity standing still in the center of the roadway. Entity was approximately 7 feet in height, humanoid in posture but avian in silhouette. Wings folded around its frame like a cloak. Head orientation was bird-like, side tilt observed, as if gauging threat posture. Eyes emitted a red bioluminescent glow akin to high heat flares, visible through windshield tint. Dahl entered audible prayer. Taylor reached for his weapon, which I advised against using. This was not a biological threat that responds predictably to violence. This was a warning, a symbol. When the entity extended its wings, the bridge physically trembled. Witness accounts describe electrical failure of nearby lighting infrastructure and auditory distortions resembling reverberated screaming through metal. Visual contact was lost 4.2 seconds later. No pursuit observed. 17 casualties were reported in a gas line rupture 2 days later, approximately 20 miles southeast of our last known visual. Official cause: infrastructure degradation. Timeline, however, is suspiciously proximate. Taylor later forwarded a frame from his dashboard camera. Timestamp 4 hours, 3 minutes, and 12 seconds. Captured was the briefest outline. 2 wings flared wide, and the unmistakable glint of red optics beyond the tree-line. No further contact with Dahl. His voicemail line now plays reversed audio consisting of indistinguishable syllables and labored breathing. Further attempts to trace or stabilize his signal have failed. Unmarked VHS cassette labeled Mason County, 1966. I have not yet reviewed its contents, but since that night, I've noticed something peculiar. On windless evenings, when the moon is low and the air goes strangely silent, I hear it again. The sound of wings. Beast of Bray Road, Wisconsin. 1980s, witnesses near Elkhorn, Wisconsin have described a strange wolf-like creature walking upright along rural Bray Road. Dubbed the Beast of Bray Road, the creature reportedly resembles a bear-sized werewolf with glowing yellow eyes and the uncanny intelligence of a predator that chooses its moments. Farmers reported livestock mutilations, while others claimed the beast chased their vehicles or watched silently from tree lines. Some folklorists tie it to Native American skinwalker legends or the European werewolf mythos carried over by German immigrants. Despite skepticism, police reports exist, and cryptid hunters continue to explore the area's dense woods. The creature remains elusive, appearing and disappearing like a bad memory or a worse omen. Field Journal entry, October 28, 2022. Bray Road Sector, Elkhorn, Wisconsin Local Time, 22:37 Central Standard Time. Mission parameters indicated a routine sweep following unexplained livestock mutilations and one civilian disappearance, presumed adolescent male, last seen near Bray Road. Historical files note the region's persistent folklore regarding upright canid entities, commonly referred to as Beast of Bray Road. Prior records dismissed sightings as local hysteria or misidentifications of large wolves or vagrant dogs. That assumption has since been amended. Deployment was ad hoc, standard protocol for anything falling into what Mr. R classifies as a Level 3 unclassified biological threat. I was assigned alongside Tamber, former private security contractor, Brazil, special clearance, and Leon, contractual support, specimen preservation background, non-combatant but experienced in field documentation. The directive was low profile, recon only, no direct engagement unless forced. Initial approach was cautious. The environment, typical rural decay, overgrown farmland, derelict barns, tree cover sporadic but dense. Wind movement through dry cornfields created constant ambient noise, which complicated auditory assessment. At 012, visual of dead raccoon in the middle of the road, a contorted carcass with no sign of roadkill trauma, spine bent upward, limbs crisscrossed unnaturally. It was placed, not fallen. Camp was set near a disused farmhouse, walls rotting under mildew, entryway marked by 5 distinct claw grooves spaced at abnormal width. Tamber inspected them silently. No comment was necessary. He loaded his weapon and took perimeter. Leon attempted humor. He never finished the sentence. At 1:43, external audio contact was confirmed. Footfalls, not random, not four-legged, heavy, slow, with intentional rhythm. Tent wall depressed slightly as if something brushed it, texture confirmed later as fur. There were no tracks in the morning, no indicators of movement aside from disturbed earth near Leon's sleeping position. A mound of soil, as if something had marked the area or attempted to bury it. Tamber's only words, "It's marking us." Night 2 escalated beyond containment. At 2:10, Leon vanished mid-sentence. No sounds of struggle. No signs of struggle. His journal was located beside the fire, still open. Final line noted, "It watches from the fence line." A brief scan of the nearby field revealed a scarecrow, previously unrecorded, bearing Leon's field pack mounted on its frame, stuffed crudely with straw. Vehicle exfiltration failed. Upon return to our transport, the truck was found disabled. The hood had been pried open with inhuman force. Cabin interior shredded. Windshield defaced with a warning in a viscous, black-red substance. "Stay." Attempted retreat on foot. Navigated toward nearest highway route via utility paths and agricultural lines. At 3:12, near an abandoned water tower, we encountered a figure. Silhouette profile. Estimated height 70 inch 7'4". Bipedal locomotion, digitigrade legs, overgrown upper limbs, full pelt coverage of black-gray fur. Noted characteristics included abnormal joint rotation, hypertrophic musculature, and auditory scanning via prolonged ear rotation. Eyes reflected amber, producing retroreflection typical of nocturnal predators. When its jaw opened, what we observed were not simple canid dentition, but layers of recurved, needle-like formations suggesting consumption and shredding adaptation. Timbre engaged preemptively, verbal challenge issued in Portuguese, tone aggressive. No response from the entity. Subject advanced with abrupt acceleration. Timbre struck with machete, contact confirmed. Black fluid, thick, malodorous, was expelled in volume, and immediate retreat of the entity was observed. It did not collapse. It did not vocalize. It simply absorbed the wound and faded into the cornrows. Recovery occurred at dawn. Transport was facilitated by an unidentified local, male, mid-50s, Caucasian, driving a late-model GMC truck. No identification given. Timbre has exhibited acute behavioral change since incident. Mutism. Stares frequently into wooded areas. Medical debrief pending. Mr. R. Internal notes. Beast of Bray Road is now designated as a Category 4 persistent entity. Not a cryptid. Not a creature. It is to be treated as an environmental consequence, a biological, perhaps even metaphysical response to collective negligence of ancestral fear, ritual memory, and forgotten boundaries. The Fresno Nightcrawler, California. March 9, 2023, Fresno, California. You'd think California would give us a break. Between the desert vampires, Hollywood cults, and Bigfoot truthers in Humboldt, I was hoping Fresno would just be another layover. But when Samson calls and says, "Pack light, bring night vision, and don't eat anything homemade," you cancel your plans. The file said, multiple sightings of unidentified bipeds. White, Tall, no arms, movement, gliding. Intent, unknown. Intent unknown, that's always the line that means, good luck, idiot. I was teamed up with Marissa, former Coast Guard rescue diver turned crypto chaser, and Glenn, who ran sound tech for a ghost hunting show that got cancelled after their cameraman tried to marry a demon. True story, Glenn still wears the ring. We landed in Fresno under the kind of sky that looks like static fields. Cloud cover that didn't move, trees that bent slightly east like they were waiting for something worse than weather. The reports clustered around Roding Park. All late-night walkers. All said the same thing. A white, leggy figure sliding across the grass like it didn't understand gravity. One guy said it looked like a pair of dress pants possessed by a ghost with a ballet degree. Another said it stared at him, though it didn't have eyes. We set up camp outside the chain-link fence. Put up motion sensors, thermal, and 2 UV rigs. Marissa kept whistling the X-Files theme, which Glenn did not find amusing. Around 2:11 a.m., we got movement of 2 figures. They glided, not walked, across the grass. Like someone had erased the friction. Pants with no torso. Cloth-like limbs, pale and ghost smooth, bending wrong but beautifully. No heads, no faces, no hands, just walking. They moved together like synchronized swimmers performing in a fog. Glenn whispered, "They're too light to make noise." Then one of the sensors exploded. Like whatever passed through it didn't like being measured. The rig fried, lights out, batteries drained, thermal black. That's when Marissa screamed. She was pointing at the camcorder. Frame by frame, there were 4 now. 2 walked upright. 1 crawled low, almost insect-like. The last just hovered. It was longer, coiled, like a white eel made of mist. They were forming a circle around us. We ran, tripped through the tent lines. Hit the fence so hard Glenn's shoulder dislocated. We kept running until we hit the service road. That's when I looked back. But there was nothing. No shapes, no sound, just a circle burned into the grass. Perfect, symmetrical, like someone had ironed a pattern into the field. Next morning, Roding Park was closed. Officials blamed vandalism. Marissa filed a report. Half of it got redacted. Glenn left town and hasn't returned any of my messages. His show producer called me asking if he'd gone off his meds. He never took meds. He's not answering because he saw it too. Samson met me in the alley behind a Fresno taqueria. Said these night crawlers have been seen before. Said they're not monsters. Then what are they? Best. He said, those are test subjects. Jersey Devil, Pine Barrens, New Jersey. The mother lead's tale of a cursed 13th child echoes through Jersey lawns. A kangaroo-like devil with hooves, bat wings, and a dog or horse's head, haunting the Pine Barrens since colonial times. April 14, 2023, Pine Barrens, New Jersey. Let me say this up front. If someone from New Jersey invites you camping in the Pine Barrens and they pack holy water, 2 machetes, and a Bluetooth speaker preloaded with Gregorian chants, leave them. Unfortunately, I didn't, because that someone was Briggs, ex-priest, part-time paranormal tracker, and the only guy I've ever seen make a cross out of a crushed Red Bull can. He brought along our third, Amira, a combat medic from Newark who claimed she once gave CPR to a guy in a demon mask during a house fire and swore the guy hissed when he woke up. That's the energy we were working with. The assignment came from a forestry team that found hoof prints on the roof of a fire tower. No damage. Just burned-in indentations and a smell described as smoked vinegar and sadness. The state sent someone from wildlife management who turned in their badge 3 hours later. The reports were classic: strange cries, livestock missing, branches snapped 15 feet up. One witness said he saw something glide between pine trunks like a feathered deer on stilts. So of course Jack said, "It's probably just mass hysteria, go check it out." The next morning, we found hoof prints circling the tent. No signs of entry, just a ring of burned pine cones. Briggs called it a warning. Amira called it bullshit and poured lighter fluid on them anyway. They wouldn't burn. Jack met us outside a diner in Medford. Told us this wasn't our first run-in with the Jersey Devil. Told us it doesn't hunt. It just remembers. Remembers what? I asked. He lit a cigarette and said, blood oaths, broken promises, the sound of children screaming when no one's listening. I told him that didn't narrow it down. He said nothing. If you liked what you heard, do show some support. It helps the channel grow. Next time we shall explore the rich mountain ranges and their associated folklores. Thank you very much.